Hi guys, this is Chris with Lazy Oaks Ranch. I'm here with Smokey. Today we're going to be continuing on our kind of foundation series here on some of the things that we do on the ranch on a regular basis with the horses that really helps them in the long run. And when your horse comes home, you'll be able to do some of this stuff those first couple of days while they're settling in to really make sure they feel comfortable in that new space. So, the last step we worked on was making sure their feet stay still with a bunch of rope work, and by picking up their feet with the rope, we were able to get them to be a lot better about picking up their feet and be comfortable with us moving their feet different places. During that exercise, we gain respect, we gain trust, and we work towards becoming a herd leader. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work on Smokey yielding off of pressure on his shoulders, on his ribs, and also on his hips. Now, the hard part about this one is if you have a horse that wants to just stand still and not move, it can be really difficult. If you have a horse that wants to really shove themselves into pressure, they're not that broke, it can be pretty difficult. But the key with, Smokey likes to move his feet, so what I expect, especially since he hasn't had this done for a while, I expect him to want to move his feet too much, which we'll talk a little bit about how to handle that. So, some people use a claw, some people use a finger, some people use a thumb. If they're really stuck on it, you can actually use your spur if you have to. But the goal is to put as little pressure as you can possibly get away with to get them to move over. So I'm going to turn him so you can see. And once again, whenever we start a new concept, I'm always going to start on the left-hand side. All right. So what I'm going to do is he's already trying to move around a little bit. So I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to gently apply pressure to the side of the shoulder. You can adjust it forward and backward depending on how the horse is moving, but that's what I'm essentially going to look for. To begin with, I'm going to have a loose rope here and hope that this works. I may have to tighten that up if he moves around too much. So I'm going to just apply, I like the thumb myself. I'm going to add thumb here, really light pressure. I'm going to make it a little bit firmer, and then if he starts moving, I'm just going to hold it there. And let's see here. No, I want front to move only. I don't want the back feet moving at all. I want the front feet to side step. Okay, so he's walking backwards, trying to avoid it. So I'm just going to hold his halter real quick. Keep in mind, he hasn't had this done for a couple months, so he's going to be a little rusty. Okay, right there. I don't know if you saw, but we had his both front feet step to the side, and we had his back feet stand still. We're going to stop on that for a second. Make sure he understands that that is exactly what we were looking for. So I'm going to do it one more time here. Hang on a second. We're just going to add a little bit of pressure to the shoulder, and we're going to just hang out there for a second. I'm going to add a little bit more until, hang on, oh, there we go. At first he tried to move his back feet, but that time he moved off of it. I'm going to pet him and say good job. So really what we're looking for in this exercise is whatever part of the body that we're requesting to move. That part moves, and the other parts don't. That's what we're looking for. And if you think about being able to independently manipulate your horse's shoulders, their ribs, and also their hind end, that's all going to come up in having them be, working more towards being fancy broke and be able to pick up everything you want them to do. It's having control of their shoulders, having control of their hips, and having control of their ribs. Also their head, but we'll get into that later. So once again, I'm going to ask him here. I'm just going to add my thumb, and this is very light pressure, and he's already thinking about it. So add a little bit more, and then once he starts stepping, I'm going to release it completely. I don't like that he took a step back, but he didn't really move backwards. He kind of just adjusted. So we'll give him a break on that one. I'm going to ask him again, and this time I'm barely touching him. He's already thinking about it. All right, if he wants to back up, I'm not going to release. Once he took a step to the side without backing up, then I released. So I'm going to ask him again. And look, now he knows what's up. I didn't have to touch him, and he already wanted to do it. So now I'm going to touch him. I'm going to hold his halter here. He's trying to back up, so I'm going to hold his halter. So he can't do that. And then you notice that the second I touched him there, and this is as light a pressure as I can possibly put on him, and he's moving off. As you go along, you can get much more picky about what you want. If you want 2 to 3 steps, great. But make sure you start with half a step, then work your way to 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. You really want them to stay motivated during this process. Okay? So I feel like we got pretty darn good movement on the shoulder there. We can assess it one more time here just to make sure that we got it. And without him moving, hopefully. So I'm going to touch that. So he's trying to back up again. So I'm just going to hold his halter here for a second. Remind him he can't move backwards. So he's starting to figure out what I want here. So I'm going to add just a tiny bit of pressure. And then he moved it over. That's exactly what we're looking for. Ideally would be no movement forward or backward. But like I said, he's pretty rusty on this, so we're just going to be reasonable about what our expectations are. If we get the shoulder to move the way we want it to move without a bunch of other movement, we're going to pause and stop there. Okay. So I feel like we started off with him wanting to walk forward, backward, not really move how we wanted him to. He didn't really get off the pressure, and now I can just kind of touch him here gently. And I'm not putting much pressure. I'm just holding my hand here. And then he moves off. So I'm going to call that accomplished. Could he do it a little bit cleaner? Sure. But that is a marked improvement from where we started. I don't want to be overzealous with this. So we're going to say good job. All right, now we're going to move on to the hip. I want the exact same process with the hip. And they have a tendency a lot of times to move their hip too much. So we're going to hopefully he doesn't do that. But we'll see here in a second. All right, so same thing here. I'm just going to add just a tiny bit of pressure on his hip. And see, he wants to move all over the place. So we're going to have to get him lined up here. Like I said, this is much harder, in my opinion. It's a lot harder with a horse that wants to move their feet than it is with a horse who wants to stay stuck, because you have a little better time just getting that one part you want. Okay? So we're going to come over here. And if he's trying to move around, you can just pet him as you go back. And I'm just going to add that little bit of pressure here. And if he wants to move forward, I'm not going to release until he just steps sideways. There we go. So we're on the other side now, but I don't know if you saw, but he stepped just sideways and then I released. If he walks forward or backwards, you can't release. You have to make sure he knows that the only option, the only option to get the pressure relief is exactly what I want. Or at least attempt. Exactly. Right there. Okay, great. That was better. He's still moving his feet, but he gave me just that hip when I asked him. So we're going to do it one more time here. Sorry, it's hard for you guys to see over there. I'm going to ask for that hip. And he moved that hip over, didn't move anything else. That was great. I'm going to move him over closer so you guys can see better. All right, if he wants to really move his feet, then I'm going to ask him to move his feet. And I'm going to make him kind of hard, and then we're going to do this again. Ready? I'm just going to make him move his feet around for a second here. If they come up with ideas that I don't really want them to be doing, oftentimes I'll just go with their idea and make it seem like a really bad idea. So if he wants to move, fine, we'll move, no problem. Stand still. All right, so now let's see if we convinced him that standing still is a better option. Okay, so now I'm going to poke here, and I'm just going to say, can you please move your hip over? Good boy. Okay, so by us moving his feet a bunch, he wanted to move. I said, okay, no problem, we'll move. It made him rethink it when we stopped. So now I'm going to ask him to move that hip over one more time. See if we can get just that hip. All right, perfect. So we got that hip. We got no other front or back movement. I'm going to call that good for now. Now we're going to move into the side passing portion. This is a lot harder, and we have to be fair with him that he hasn't done this in a while, and we have to be really fair in our expectations. If the front moves more than the back, if he moves off kilter, to begin with, we're not going to really pick on that. If we get front and back moving the direction we want, we're going to call that good to start with, and then we can fine tune it as we go. So I'm going to put my thumb pretty much where my spur would end up, and I'm just going to add a little bit of pressure. See, the back end's moving, but not the front. There we go. So the second I got that lateral movement, I released. When he moved his hip around, I didn't release because he wasn't quite doing what I wanted. So I'm going to ask, don't make you move around again. So now I'm going to add my thumb there again. And obviously saw that time, but we got a complete side pass out of him. So we're going to leave that alone. He was very committed to it. Now we're going to move on to the other side. I would expect the other side, it's the right eye. I'd expect it to be more difficult. With Smokey, he's pretty balanced, so maybe not, but let's just take a look. Okay, so I'm going to poke in the shoulder right here, really gently. He's trying to back up again like he did on the other side. And a lot of times they'll get very creative in how they try to avoid having to do this exercise. So what we'll do, and if you've done it with them recently, they shouldn't be walking off and moving around, but like I said, it's been a while for him, which is good because you guys get to see a little bit of problem solving here. So I'm going to hold his halter so he can't walk the other way, and I'm just going to ask him to move that shoulder off, and if he wants to move forward, I'm going to block him. If he wants to move back, I'm going to block him that way, and I'm not going to release until, there we go. He went that way. I'm going to ask him again. And he moved just his front end that time. I'm going to pet him. I'm going to give him a really nice release to let him know, hey, you know what? I appreciate you trying to do the right thing there. Okay? I'm going to give him a break here. I'm going to try to release the halter, shorten my rope a little bit, and I'm going to see if he's willing to do it without stepping off now. Let's see. So I'm going to ask him to move his shoulder over. Please move your shoulder. No, I want you just your shoulder. That was a half step. I'll take it. That was not moving any other part of his body, so we'll take it. I'm going to ask him again. But the horse needs to know that if this is the only thing I work on all day today, it's absolutely fine. It's going to be frustrating, but he needs to know that if I start asking him something, I'm not going to stop asking him something until we get a little bit of progress. It doesn't have to be a lot of progress. Don't be overzealous, but it has to be at least a little bit of progress, a little bit of understanding, and then we can stop. Right now, he just wants to fight on it, so we're going to just keep asking, and we're going to keep correcting whatever comes up that he's, all the avoidance behaviors he's trying to have. I'm just going to hang out here. He's thinking about it. There we go. That was half a step. Obviously, I want more than that, but he took half a step without moving his back end. He's looking and chewing. He's starting to understand what I'm looking for. So let's gently ask, see if we can get it without those first steps to begin with. Okay, let's see what we got. And he went to the side, no steps. We're going to call it done on that. So we end up having to chase him around quite a bit and work on that. But when he makes a marked difference from where we started, we have to stop on that. Good job, Smokey. Good boy. This is a great example to talk, it's a great opportunity to talk about patience. This horse knows how to do this inside and out, upside down and backwards. He hasn't done it for about 2 months. You have to go into it expecting him to have a hard time with it, even though you know he knows it inside and out. So now we're going to go into the hip. Remember I said the right side's always more difficult, or almost always more difficult. Some horses aren't that case. Now I'm going to ask him here. I'm going to ask him for this hip. Okay? And my guess is, with how difficult he was on the right, we're going to have a little bit of problem. But he gave it right there. If he does that 2 more times, we're going to call it good. So I'm just going to touch right here. I'm going to gently ask him to move that hip over. Whoa, good boy. We're just going to ask him one more time to make sure we have comprehension. And then we're going to leave it alone. The other side we work 20 minutes. If this side we work 2 minutes, that's totally fine, as long as we got what we needed on both sides. There we go. He took a step forward, but then he stopped, and then he gave me two steps to the side. So we are going to have to kind of work on it one more time, but let's see if I ask him again, see if we can get no forward movement on it, and see if we can get what we're looking for. Excellent. There's a half step, but he didn't move his front feet. We're going to stop right there. Now we're going to try the side pass element, right where our spur would go. Just going to gently ask him to step over, and he's moving forward. But if we get any sideways, okay, we got some sideways out of him, we're going to leave it be with that. Because we have had a lot of work on that, shoulder movement to the right, I don't want to beat him up on it. We're going to stop right there with that exercise. Thanks a lot, guys, for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.